Your legacy story is being written right now, whether you're paying attention to it or not. That is an interesting thought line because then who is writing that story of yours? Now, it could be your family, it could be colleagues, it could be you. And if it is you, then it's important to remember that words matter. And therefore, the stories that you're going to share, in other words, to explore, discover, research, shape, share, reflect on, revamp, are going to be through words that you're going to bring forth if you decide that you're the one who's the author of your stories. I suggest that you take control of the narrative that's associated with your stories. What I'm getting at there from a sense of control is, what does it lead to? What does your story lead to? What is it that you want to live so that you can leave it? So the intention is to live your legacy so as to leave it. And if there are others at the time of your transition want to write the eulogy, they have material, they have ideas, they have suggestions that you have left along the way, the markers. And that's great for them. It's also wonderful for you because it places intention into living your legacy life. Now, I would encourage you, if you have not watched the previous video on Living Legacy Life, an introduction, I would encourage you to go there because there's a definition of legacy that I share with you. With Living Legacy, there's the importance of stories, contributions, and projects. And in my research around the topic as a whole, I realized that living legacy stories is really a pivotal aspect of what's taking place. So as I'm bringing to the foreground wealth movement to living legacy life through living legacy stories onto living legacy outdoors and Legacent, this pathway that I'm outlining for you and for me, because it's my way of saying this is what it leads to. This is what my life, my legacy leads to, and being able to shape it and share it with you. And therefore, these stories that I'm creating are the pivot points through the decisions and actions and outcomes that I take. There are pivots along the way. Some of you might call them course corrections. There's other terms that might go with that. But I sort of like the word pivots, and I've been known to pivot quite a bit, even in a day. And if you reflect on what's happening for you, you might find the same. And it's interesting to tap into those pivots to find out what's going on around your be, have, do that you have set up for yourself. And one of the great ways to do that is, what's a significant word that aligns with you living your legacy life? And then find 4 other words to go around it. So think of it that you're looking at a compass and the central word is in the middle. That's where the needle is balancing. The other 4 words are the north, east, west, and south, or the sense of earth, air, fire, and water, if you like that metaphor. And to write a story. And some of those stories could be what are called your signature stories, or a story that is of great significance. You can start to frame that up, and it's not that you have to write it all in one day. It can go in chapters. It might poke along at a good pace, and you're just adding to it a little bit more and a little bit more each day. Now, I just mentioned the origin story. That's the one that you're finding that sort of provides that threads to a rope kind of metaphor that I use often in my videos. And my origin story always came back to education and educator. And along the way, all the different types and ways that I have done the education approaches. I've written books about it. And I went so far as to actually do my doctorate in adult education. Rather than young persons, I did adults. And I found that to be fascinating because what it did was it gave me an opportunity to take a look at the mix of educating and learning. And that led me to a whole bunch of other insights. And through other videos that will be coming along, I'll share those education approaches like teach in the reach, guide on the ride, sage off the page. And when we get into Legacent, that is a really great place where, as I am in my now 71st revolution of the sun, I am thinking about what's a name that I could give to myself. And I thought Legacent, and I'm preparing it as a way to share with you as a possibility that as you're living your legacy life and you are living legacy stories and living legacy outdoors or living legacy grandparents, whatever it might be, is that you have a term to share with yourself, because sometimes words like senior, elder don't always quite fit for whatever reason. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to Legacent. The other types of stories that you might tap into are history and mystery. In other words, through your reflection on your history, what are the stories, the threads that you want to bring forward? Now, some of them might be, boy, I learned a lot about that one. Girl, I think I'm going to keep that one to myself. Whatever it might be, is that there are history elements. And being able to bring them forward into the present and figuring out what you want to share can be quite helpful. And a friend of mine who does a lot of mentoring has done a lot of work in the grief area, for example. And he's written books about the grief. So his signature stories, his origin stories, are now linking up with the sense of grief and bringing it through mentoring. And he is... I'll use the word having fun with it, even though I know the topic isn't funny or fun in one sense. But for him is that he's come to really find his tear from his heart and how he's expressing it out through his head, into his hands, through his writing, and then sharing. He does a lot of podcast related work. Now, there are other kinds of stories like real and imaginary. The real stories are about the history and the mystery of where you're headed for your future, and you're bringing that into your present. That might be real. You're actually doing things to get there. But they may be imaginary as well. I'm looking at writing books that are about key concepts, but they're going to have a shape-shifting tree, and they're going to have characters in them who are going into this this world that I'm going to create. Again, more of that will show up in the next video around living legacy outdoors. But it's a way in which to tap in then to all different kinds of formats of writing. It could be short story or a parable. It could be a novel. It could be an autobiography. It could be a biography of someone that you've met along the way. One of the things I'm doing is collecting some of the key concepts and practices from all the books that I've written over time and how they've influenced where I am today. So there'll be some articles. There might be what people sometimes call as giveaways or lead magnets that will be available. And I'm just doing it because it's a way to bring those fibers to threads, to strings, to cords, the ropes together. And it's one of the also ways that I'm decluttering all of my legacy boxes, all the things that I've collected over time. So it's great from that perspective as well. And aligned with this shaping and sharing of stories, there are different ways to publish it. I've shared a couple. I've written quite a number of different kinds of books. I haven't done the novel yet. I've done short parable stories and connections. I've done a lot of journals that I've created and prompt activity books over the years. I've brought together some ideas. I'm actually going to republish one about, what is it called, 103 tips, tools, and techniques for your involvement in the outdoors in rural wilderness areas. That's based on my years of being a wilderness remote first aid instructor trainer, and being a whitewater rafting guide and spending many summers and taking courses connected with the outdoors. And you might be amazed that as you reflect on your own life and tap into it, there's lots of stories there that if you give yourself the opportunity to look at them, shape them, write about them. And one of the things that I do usually on a Friday is put out a how to write video. And also I have playlists of the shorts that can serve as prompts for journals and or short little articles if you want to write them. And there's lots of tools to support you in today's world, and that's really great. And if we want to have a chat about the different kinds of tools that are available for stories, then let's get into it. One of the other aspects that's important, I think, around stories is that there's storytelling and story sharing. Now, I make a differentiation here simply because when I was consultant, trainer, instructor, and facilitator in the corporate world, doing a lot of team development, doing lots of courses about wealth and movement, which is one of the first videos in this vlog series, I came to appreciate that there was manage through storytelling and lead through story sharing. And I'll explain it this way. When you manage systems for persons, you're engaging them in storytelling because there's a system that you're asking them to get involved with so that they can improve their performance on an individual basis, increase their productivity in shared. So there was that connection about, I thought about, well, I'm storytelling into that situation to ensure the safety through the use of that system. And I then looked at it and I said, okay, well then if I'm leading, then I'm leading through story sharing. And the story sharing was to lead a person from the sense of safer practices. The story that I'm sharing is usually with a person or maybe two persons kind of idea. It's not like I'm standing in front of a big meeting and talking about it. I call that storytelling. I'm there and I'm using story sharing to help an individual understand about the safer practices. Now, the midpoint of that will back and forth because there's times when I used story sharing techniques that had like a meeting and there's 10, 15 people there. What I was attempting to do is figure out how the story that I was had shaped and I was sharing would hit the head, heart, and hands, or heart, head, and hands of each person in the room. So I would have to just adjust the words or the imagery because there is the sense of visual, auditory, kinesthetic. I could talk about, do you see this? Do you hear this? Can you do this? And the phrasing of words, the stories that I'm attempting to put out. It sort of helped me to shape the different kinds of stories there are. And also around me, I'm tapping into lots of prompts, and I can share it in the following way. You'll notice around me, and I'll bring it up in my hand, is there's different kinds of elements around me. So there is the what I call trinkets or artifacts cabinet, where there are items that I've collected over time that I could go in and share a story. And I have bins around of my journals. I have poetry that I've written about special occasions. I can tap into all of that. Then I have my my whiteboard that I have, and I have a smaller one as well that I write and doodle and use a visual language that I can share stories through. And then around me there are art pieces. This one is about a tree, and it's made of wool, a yarn, and it's sort of a kind of an interesting to remind me. Then I have little prompts like this one is, what happened? And I have a series of them. And sometimes what I'll do is each day or each time I go online, this is sort of where I do some of my online, I'll switch over that question, or I'll grab them and I'll show them as a way in which to say, hey, listen, here's a question for us. What's our story that we're unfolding? And my mug is always here, even though it has a little chip in it. I've gone and grabbed other mugs that I thought would be, oh, they'd be okay. But they don't quite fit and feel like this mug. And so I have it with me, and I'm going to have a sip right now. This is a way in which to wet the mouth, but also to celebrate, have a drink with you. If we even tapped our mugs, then so be it. That would be really great. So that's just, even in my own background, I have different elements, different tools, different techniques that I can tap into. And there are different words here that you can find if you just look at the where you are when you're writing, whether it's outside, because right out there is the screen to the door. Outside, I'm pulling in some natural light, got a little bit of light coming off the computer screen, just to delight things and share the stories with you. So there are the sense of the safe systems that you can use for writing. There are the safer practices you can use for writing. There's the origin story, the signature story, the real, the imaginary, the history, the mystery. There's lots of ways in which you can frame up your stories. And it's not that you have to do all of them. I've come to really appreciate that. I'm going to lean into prompt and activity books and journals and create those, and then find ways in which to write short parables around some key concepts in that I'm working on. And then there is this a story. I'm not going to really identify what it is, but it'll be a story about that shape-shifting tree, three main characters who meet a whole bunch of other characters. And I'm just going to write that to bring to the foreground all different kinds of concepts, like contribution and commitment and courage and clarity, these kind of words, and see where it takes me. So let's see what unfolds, and you can certainly tap in as we move along. With this video in the vlog series, I just wanted to introduce this Living Legacy Stories. It's a pivot. It sort of sits in between Wealth Movement and Living Legacy Life and Living Legacy Outdoors and Legacent. And it's this place where I can adjust what it is that I'm doing through stories. And that is wonderful. It touches and tickles me to no end that that's happening. So as you start to watch what's taking place now, you'll notice that there are videos and playlists that are being put up here for you. The video is one that's recommended to continue your storyline. If not, go into the playlist called The Vlog. But also what I've done is I put up the link to the shorts videos, which are almost daily prompts, probably 4 out of 7 days I put up these. And they're really great for your journaling. So with that, if there's any comments, put them down below. I wish you the best and take care.